The father violated his daughter, who was in high school, for 3 years. After her biological mother found out, he went out of his way to rape her in front of her daughter. After assaulting the mother, the father assaulted the daughter in front of the mother. What is even more perverted is that she even asked the mother and daughter to violate her in turn. So my mother felt very satisfied at that time, and I also felt very happy. Finally, under the mental and physical torture, the mother couldn't bear it anymore and tied her husband to the bed and shocked him with a high-voltage rod for a full 72 hours. My husband didn't dare to sleep, as he would be electrocuted if he fell asleep, and he didn't dare to faint, because if he fainted, he would be electrocuted to wake him up. After 3 days and 3 nights of crazy torture, the husband was electrocuted until he became incontinent and lost his life. Finally, his mother took out a kitchen knife and cut him into hundreds of pieces, flushing him down the toilet and into the sewer. Can you bear this? Time goes back to July 7, 2013. At around 8 o'clock in the morning in Luan City, Anhui Province, a burst of sirens broke the tranquility of the police station. A woman named Zheng Qianan came to report the crime. She cried and said that she had brutally murdered her biological husband. He cut his body into pieces and flushed them into his toilet. At first, the police thought the other party was joking, but when the police followed the woman to his residence, they were greeted by a suffocating smell and a pile of rotten meat in the corner of the kitchen. Only then did they realizing that the situation was not good. He controlled the woman on the spot. According to her, around 8 a.m., she prepared sleeping pills in advance and mixed her husband's commonly used anti-inflammatory drugs into a package. The unknowing husband took sleeping pills and soon fell into a deep sleep. Then she found a wire and tied her husband's hands and feet tightly. Over the next 72 hours, she tortured her husband in various ways, first stunning him with an electric baton, and then pouring cold water on him to wake him up. Then the stun continued, and it was repeated an unknown number of times. On the 4th day, her husband became incontinent and ended his life. At first, she did not think about surrendering. Instead, she ran to the kitchen, picked up a kitchen knife, and chopped her husband into hundreds of small pieces. But she is a woman. They didn't dare to throw away the body, so they had to pile up the minced meat in their kitchen and let it rot and stink. A month passed like this. Because she couldn't bear the stench and the neighbor upstairs reported her, she realized that sooner or later she would be exposed, so she mustered up the courage to go to the police station to report the crime. So, what's the grudge between the couple? Why did she do this to her husband? It turned out that one afternoon a few years ago, she went out for something, and her husband sneaked into his daughter's jiaoji room while his wife was not at home, and committed perverted violations for several hours. When she came home at night, she found her daughter hiding alone in the bathroom crying. Zheng Qianan was furious after learning the truth and rushed directly into her husband's room. But at this time, the other party was playing games with an indifferent expression. This move made him even more angry. Point at the other person's nose and yell. Faced with his wife's accusations, the husband didn't take it seriously at all, refused to admit it, and said arrogantly, "So what if he did it? You have no direct evidence, not to mention who would believe that a father would murder his daughter in high school?" Although she felt very regretful in her heart, it was already too late. So why on earth did she insist on marrying such a man? On this day in April 2005, Zheng Qianan was busy in the hardware store run by his family. At this time, a worker who was helping in the store came to try to arrange a marriage for him. He said that the other party was shy and outstanding in appearance, and thought that he was single. After many years and raising a daughter alone, they agreed to this blind date. The man's name is Li Hao. He was born in Luan City, Anhui Province. He is 41 years old this year. His parents died early in his life and he grew up eating the food of hundreds of families in the village. Due to family difficulties, he has not yet married a wife. Perhaps out of sympathy, the two became more and more congenial and fell in love. However, regarding this marriage, Zheng Qianan's family has always been strongly opposed to him having been in prison. At that time, we seemed to be very taboo about this matter. It turns out that this man named Li Hao not only has little education, but also has committed a crime. Have you ever been sentenced to 15 years in prison for fighting? Is such a man really reliable? Faced with doubts from her family, Li Hao admitted that she did have a criminal record and said that as long as she is around in the future, no one will dare to bully her daughter-in-law. Zheng Qianan was moved to tears on the spot after hearing this. After all, everyone makes mistakes, as long as they can correct it. On the contrary, she thought that Li Hao was a good and responsible husband, and was determined not to marry her in this life. But what she didn't expect was that the other party still said less, and she was the only one who could bully her and her daughter. But her family members still advised Zheng Qianan to be cautious, but a woman who was dazzled by love would not listen. The two had only known each other for a month, and Zheng Qianan remarried without telling her family, and took her 8-year-old daughter with her. After the marriage, she wanted to satisfy herself. In line with her husband's wish, she did not hesitate to spend her savings over the years and build a new house on her husband's homestead. Time goes back to 1996. At that time, Zheng Qianan was 27 years old and working as a clerk in a local public institution. She was a well-known lady from all over the country. It was during this year that I met my ex-husband at work. The two naturally got together because of their common interests. Shortly after their marriage, their lovely daughter Jiaojia was born. The good times did not last long. In the second year after the marriage, her husband died due to a sudden epilepsy. Faced with the sudden blow, Zheng Qianan almost collapsed emotionally. She locked herself in her room every day without eating or drinking. After that, she resigned from her original employer and took her daughter around to do odd jobs to make ends meet. After unremitting efforts, she finally opened a hardware store in downtown Hefei, and her life gradually improved, but the longing for her ex-husband still kept her awake all night. In order to survive, she will do this. Emotions have been hidden in my heart for 10 years, and I would cry alone late at night, and Li Hao's appearance just filled the emotional gap. Perhaps due to the pain caused by his previous marriage, Zheng Qianan is extremely sensitive to this relationship. As long as the other person is unhappy, he will try his best to please the other person, thinking that long-term dedication can earn gentle treatment, but he never expected that yes, my favorite male god would actually do such a perverted thing to my daughter. In order to prevent accidents from happening, she sent her daughter to a boarding school. I thought life would be peaceful, but unexpectedly my husband Li Hao got into another bad habit. In 2010, due to city planning, the new house built in his hometown faced demolition. According to relevant policies, the government compensated multiple commercial houses and 400,000 yuan. Demolition compensation. Unexpected wealth fell from the sky, and her husband began to reveal his true nature and squander the money everywhere. Zheng Qianan also began to doubt her husband's purpose of approaching her and the real reason why he was imprisoned. After that, she began to ask around about her old neighbors, but she got an amazing answer. The shocking result was that the husband was not involved in a fight, but was imprisoned for 15 years for assault. It was hard to imagine that the person he had been sleeping with for many years was such a person. At this moment, Zheng Qianan's years of faith began to collapse, so she mustered up the courage to step into the door of the local court and formally apply for divorce from her husband. You want a divorce certificate, but the two did not reach an agreement on the division of property and had to continue to be entangled until the day of the incident. When she learned that her husband had once again violated her daughter, she could no longer restrain her emotions and had to make a break. After sending her daughter to boarding school on June 14, 2013, she tied up and controlled her unconscious husband for 3 days, using all possible means to torture him. The husband, who was in extreme anger and fear, was eventually tortured to death due to lack of physical strength. Looking at the person in front of him who had brought him endless pain, Zheng Qianan felt a sense of relief in his heart, but his reason told him that he must handle all this properly, otherwise his innocent daughter would be affected. Because it was still a month before his daughter's college entrance examination, so as not to affect his daughter's studies, he endured all this silently alone. It was not until his daughter's college entrance examination was over a month later that he went to the police station to report the crime and made a truthful confession. What do the babies think about this case? You need to be cautious when getting married. Premarital investigation is still necessary.